This episode of Success Through Connections is brought to you by Legacy Realty Group, North Florida. The team that treats your home, your time, and your goals as top priority. Real people, real results, real care.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Success Through Connections. I have a really cool guest with us today. Her name is Dr. Kimberly Linert, and I'm going to tell you first, like I always do, how we met, how we got connected. So many months ago, probably a year ago, I was on a podcast with Robert Plank, and he was interviewing me, and we were talking, and then, he did his thing, I did my thing, and then a year later, here we are. He's sending me an email about a book that he's creating. And he also said, hey, I want to introduce you to someone who I think would be a great guest on your show. So that is how I got connected with Dr. Kimberly. Now, let me tell you a little bit about her, though. So Dr. Kimberly is actually a trained doctor. She is a doctor of optometry. So she's all about the vision, but she has a unique take on vision. So she has created this Optic Brain Fit Method. And she talks about how how your vision, your brain, your body movement, how it's all connected, and it can clear, blind spots in your brain and all kinds of really interesting things. And I thought, I know I often get stuck with ideas and can't move forward. So I was very curious about what this Optic Brain Fit Method was about. So welcome, Dr. Kimberly.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and excited to be here and to share with your listeners.
That's great. So I know you're an optometrist. And so that to me is glasses and that type of a vision. But you have a unique take where you took neurology, the science of that, optometry, along with personal growth to create this Optic Brain Fit Method. Tell me, what was it in your life that sparked you to say and create this Optic Brain Fit?
So first of all, like you said, an optometrist usually checks for eye health. And if you need glasses or contact lenses, we prescribe that. If you have an eye infection, we treat that. But I specialized very early on in something called behavioral optometry. Behavioral optometrists have therapy centers where people come to enhance their potential. It may be rehabilitation or enhancement. And we use different things that integrate the vision and brain. And I learned as I continued on with this that most of what I was doing when I was learning was vision and a little bit of brain work. And I learned that those two kind of flipped, where I started doing about 20% vision and about 80% brain work. And I found that when I integrated the vision and brain work with body movement, so having someone do things all together, then it increased their sustainability. It just made things transfer into life even more easily. An example would be, I have someone walking on a balance beam, and I am having them walk down the beam. I'm throwing a ball at them from the side, and they have to catch it, which is, if you have good enough balance, it's pretty easy. But then what I do is I'll give them some glasses that have prisms, and it might make things go up or go down or to the side or the other side. So now they're walking on the beam. They're having to adjust to this new environment I just gave them, and I'm throwing a ball at them. So it makes people very flexible, makes them able to make decisions quickly, to hand-eye coordination, adapt to situations. Because when you're flexible, you're way ahead of other people, because the person who can be flexible in a situation and kind of move with the curves of the road are much better than the people who they get stuck and they just stop when things start changing.
Right. Well, that's interesting, because I can imagine you throwing a ball at me on a balance beam. I'd be off. And then if you put glasses with prisms, oh gosh, that would not be a pretty picture. I'd be on the floor. So I know that this helps people with, how does it help people, I should say, with movement and to perform better? You talk about it helps you with your performance. I'm thinking in work. How does it help you perform better?
Mm-hmm. Well, it just depends on what people are coming in for or what their goals are. So it's really easy to give the example of someone who is a baseball player. So a baseball player if they use their central and peripheral vision together, can see the ball faster, which when you can see the ball faster and interpret where it's coming and where it's, where things are going and where the players are on the field, then you can react faster and put your body into motion factor because the eyes tell the brain where everything is, and the brain makes an assessment and tells the body to move. So the faster you can see and interpret, the faster you can put your body into motion.
Well, I would think naturally, we have peripheral vision. So using the baseball player as an analogy, I would think he's trained to use that peripheral vision in the first place. So how would it help? How does this peripheral vision help the average business person or, career person perform better?
So there's different ways to use it. Most of people in society these days are going around just using their central vision, which is for identification and clarity. And if you think of the central vision as looking at your goal, and I always imagine the goal as a mountain in the future. So you're looking at the mountain, you know where you're going, that's your goal. So that's your central vision. It's very clear, it's very focused, but it doesn't see outside. So let's say you're on your path and all of a sudden there's a big rock or a mountain in front of you and you can't see past it. You can kind of see your goal up there, but you're like stuck.
Okay.
In comes the peripheral or your outside vision, your side vision. So you turn that on. Now that is your navigation system. It's also your balance system. So when you use your peripheral, you have better balance when just from a physical standpoint. So that's why if people are having dizzy spells or whatever, if they open up the peripheral by opening and keeping their central open, they're going to not be so dizzy. So, but it opens up the navigation system. So all of a sudden you can see where you're going. It sees motion. It sees all the different pathways. So now, even if there's a obstacle in your way, you can see there's another road over here. There's a road here. There's an airplane over here that you can take to get to your goal faster. So you can see all the different ways of doing things or getting to somewhere. So when it comes to decision making, if you can see all the ways to go and still stay central and focused on your goal, you're going to get there faster and with more ease. Because if you think of life as a big jigsaw puzzle, let's say, and it's got a bunch of pieces, and if you're only central, so you're just seeing a few pieces at a time, if what you're looking at is upsetting or disturbing, you're going to be upset. If what you're looking at is happy or feels good, you're going to feel good. But what if you open up your peripheral vision, you can see all the pieces and you can see how this little piece and this little piece, this maybe negative and this positive, go together into the big puzzle. And when you can see the big puzzle, all of a sudden your anxiety goes away. You're able to make decisions with ease, with comfort, with relaxation. It just makes...
It's finding the workaround sometimes. I know that for me, I have so many, I do the podcast, I write courses, and I do speaking. And sometimes, in the beginning, it was hard for me to figure out how they all work together. It was like they seemed to be individual little things. So it took me some time. That big boulder was in front of me constantly. But now it's like, okay, it makes sense and I can work around it. But boy, when you get stuck, it's hard sometimes to find that workaround. Would you say that's what we're talking about a little bit here, is that workaround? How do you get around that boulder?
It
Right?
definitely could be. And also when I work with people, even just with their physical vision, day to day, they notice more things. So they might have taken the same route to work every day. And all of a sudden we teach them to use their central and their peripheral vision together. So they're both turned on. And they're like, I didn't realize that house had blue shutters.
Yes.
I didn't know these people had a dog in front of the yard all the time. I mean, all of a sudden they're noticing things just by working the physical, physiological vision. It opens that up. But also when it does that and you have more ease, then the creativity comes in. So when you're at ease, you can be creative. But when you're stressed, you're in your your left brain. So you're stressed, you're just thinking of details and logic. But when you're in your right brain, you're opened up, you're relaxed, you're creative.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you share with us maybe a story of someone whose life really did change from using this Optic Brain Fit method?
Yeah. So I worked with a high school girl that she was on 3 different softball teams. So this family was very serious about softball. And she came in to see me not because she was having trouble, but because they just want her to be the best she could be.
Right.
And so the mother came and told me this story. She said, we were driving down the road. I was sitting in the driver's seat. My daughter was in the passenger seat. And all of a sudden she said, Mom, I can see you. And she said, what do you mean? She said, I can see you. And she said, what are you talking about? And she said, well, in the past, when we were driving down the road and I was looking through the window straight ahead and we were talking, I couldn't see you. But now I'm looking straight ahead and I can see all of you while I'm talking to you looking straight ahead.
Interesting. Yeah. It's like you've got to just open up your mind, your vision, get wider. So, yeah, see the bigger picture, not the little picture.
Exactly.
So I know that often we get not just you're looking at someone and they look to be very successful in business and in life. And on the outside, they look like, oh my God, they've got it all. But maybe that person on the inside feels very lost, very empty, maybe even imposter syndrome. It's like, I'm not all that. How do you help them break through that?
Yeah. So many of us, we're into the achievement, and from the outside, we just look like we're doing great.
Yes.
But there are many little girls and little boys running companies these days. So from the outside, they look like who they're supposed to be. But on the inside, sometimes people are secretly thinking, what happens when people realize I really shouldn't be here, or they have doubts about themselves, like, even though they are totally qualified to be in that position, but inside they still have those insecurities.
Sure.
And, so many of those actually come from childhood, those parts of us that didn't all the way grow up. I don't care how old you are. We all have some of those that happen. But when those filters that we have created to protect ourselves are keeping us from feeling our best, are keeping us from stepping out as the person we are and actually coming out joyfully and not with doubt or discomfort, then that's when we want to remove them. And I have a process where I just help people take a look at those things, but from a very comfortable standpoint. There's people who do talk therapy and they spend years trying to remove, traumas or things. And the process I use, we look at it from a very distant point where you're not emotionally involved at all, and you don't have to talk about the details or anything. You don't have to go back into it. You just take a look at it, and we look at it for what it is. We get all the things we can learn, all the lessons, all the things we can apply from it. And then we just move back into life with those new learnings, with those new ways of thinking. We remove the block, but we don't do it in the way that maybe a therapist would do.
Gotcha. So are there some daily rituals or habits that someone can do to start this process of being centered with their vision and their purpose in life?
There are so many, of course, that I teach.
A couple.
I mean, one of the number one things is so simple, but it's so important and it's so powerful. And that is to take a walk out in nature every day. Mm-hmm. And while you're doing that, practice turning on your central vision, making things clear, and then noticing as much of the space around you as you can. And one thing that people can try is if you're outside and let's say you're just standing and you're looking up at the sky, if you look up at the sky way above where the trees are, so you kind of getting away from anything in front of you, and see as much of the sky as you can and just relax and breathe, because you're going to need to do that because peripheral is relaxing and breathing. So you're just seeing as much as you can, and then hold that position of your eyes and just lower them just enough so you start to see the trees and the leaves. And when you do that, you're going to notice that everything pops. There's going to be 3D to everything. Everything will seem more real and more open, and you'll see more. And if you can just hold that You're going to have a lot more relaxation. You're going to get into that creativity. I don't know how to, people just have to go try it because it's hard to explain it.
I'm thinking I'm going to go outside when it stops raining and I'm going to go check that. I'm going to look at the sky and bring it all back in. Well, I know that you also have these retreats. They're very intense, I believe. Can you tell us a little bit about that and maybe some of the breakthroughs someone could expect to experience at these retreats?
I tend to keep them very small, like 8 to 12 people at the most, because there's parts of the retreat where we're actually all working together and moving some of these blocks that have kept us from being joyful. But also there's times when I just spend time one-on-one with people for that same reason. And there's a reason I do that. The first is when you get individual tension, of course, you're going to move the needle a little faster. But also, if I have someone in front of the room and we're working through some of the things, just by being a part of that whole group, we all get the gains. In fact, even the person, me, helping the person through this, learns from that. My brain, my mind learns from even working through something with someone. And so it's a very private, container where, what happens at the retreat
Stays at
the retreat, things like that. But just people, it just gives them that break away from everything else while doing the healing that they need to do.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, I have a signature question that I always like to ask. And that is if you could share a story of when an opportunity presented itself to you to get a connection. It was because of a connection that an opportunity opened up for you. Or if not that, then maybe you opened the door for someone else because of the relationship that you had.
Yeah, definitely. So I was just thinking, actually, about a week ago, I was invited to this VIP dinner where there was many people that I would like to connect with. I didn't know anyone there except for the person that invited me, but David Meltzer had been on my podcast about a year ago, and he said, "Hey, I'm having this VIP dinner in Buckhead, which is a place in Atlanta.
Right.
And, would you like to come?" And I said, Sure, of course. And of course, getting there, I met a lot of people. I didn't know who I was going to meet. I didn't know who I was going to be there. But, we all have those people that are they're not just our target market who we want to connect with, but also the people that we want to have relationships with.
Yes.
We meet people from all walks of life doing all different things. But when you find that group where you just connect and you can really help each other, support each other, collaborate on projects, that's what I love.
That's the real jewel, isn't it? It's like when you find those people. That's great. Well, how can our audience, if they want to connect with you, how can they find you?
So I'm on Facebook and on LinkedIn, just under my name, Kimberly Linert. I also, you'll put this in the show notes, I have a link tree where I have all my links. I do a lot of different things, when creating your incredible life, which is the name of my podcast.
Right. You have a book? Don't you have a book about that?
Yep.
Okay, show us your book. I know you have. Tell me a little bit about that book before we do sign off.
Sure. Visualizing happiness in every area of your life. This is a step-by-step guide to creating an incredible life of your own. And it asks things like, who am I? What do I like? What's important to me? What my values are. And then at the end, I have you put it all together. So at the end of every chapter, there's questions, and you'll want to write down those questions because at the end, you'll need the answers to those to put it all together. And we go as far as putting it on your calendar, to 2 to 5 years in advance. Okay, this is what I want to do. Okay, now that you have them on your calendar, let's make a plan to make it all happen. It also has stories from different people who found happiness in different ways, just so you can get an idea from that. And that's a lot like my podcast where I interview people to find out what gives them happiness, fulfillment, how they put their gifts out into the world.
That's awesome. And where can they get the book?
They can get it on Amazon.
Okay, there you go, everybody. It's Amazon, of course. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kimberly Linert, for today's episode of Success Through Connections. And to our listeners, remember that success is not formed in isolation. It takes connections to build success. So until next week, I'm Zelda, and let's keep connecting.
When it comes to buying, selling, or managing your rental property, don't settle. Choose the professionals at Legacy Realty Group North Florida, the real estate company that gives you peace of mind.